Hello and welcome to day 10 of the Reckoning Live book tour. And this is the last book tour event for my book tour for The Reckoning, which, if you guys don't know, my name is Kayla Knu. I'm an author, YouTuber, gamer, and aerialist. And my debut adult dark fantasy novel just came out on April 14th, which was also my 30th birthday. So yes, get excited. I am excited. Yeah. So this is the last day again of my live virtual book tour. If you guys missed out on any of the previous events, they are all linked in the playlist below. So you can go and check them all out. You can see me reading the other chapters of the book. Today we will be reading chapter 7. I'll pull that up. So we're going to be reading chapter 7 today. It's from Harrison's perspective. Here is my author proof arc, whatever you want to call it, that I am reading from. And I am going to throw up some content warnings in the chat before we get started because those are important. And yeah, so everything's linked below. The Reckoning is available in hardback, paperback, and ebook editions. So whatever your preferred reading media, I got them all. And one day I will have an audiobook as well, but gotta be published before you can make the audiobook. So it is available. You can order it. You can also vote for The Reckoning. I have submitted it to a contest. So if you want to support me, please take like the 1 minute that it takes to click the link below and vote for me on the fantasy book page, because it would be sweet to win a contest. Anyway, content warning. So today's chapter is a very heavy content warnings. The book is intended for mature audiences, 18 or older. If you are not of age, please consider going elsewhere, because we're gonna get nice and heavy today. And I can't spell. Let's see, how do you spell it? There we go. So our biggest content warning for today is going to be rape. Because an explicit description of rape is happening in this scene. Eating blood and gore. So it is a very trauma-heavy chapter. And I'm putting them in the chat. So we have rape, explicit description, sexual violence, abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, beatings, blood and gore, trauma, victim blaming. We have male victims. We have murder, death, loss of a loved one. Etc. All right, guys. Content warnings are in the chat and they are pinned. You'll notice that I actually put the rape content warning on the little banner so that anybody who jumps in case they don't check the chat, at least gets that content warning, because spoilers, there's going to be rape in this chapter. Explicitly described with a male victim. So if that bothers you or triggers you and you don't want to hear it, don't listen, because that's what's about to happen. But yeah, this is a dark fantasy novel and dark things happen. And yeah, so that is what is happening. And we are just going to go ahead and get into it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, drop them in the comments. I will get back to you when I see them. Bookmark if you haven't seen it already. It's beautiful and shiny. All right. And sneak peek at the inside of the book. Chapter 7. Love my magic symbols in there. Chapter 7, Harrison. Jess held my hand firmly as she led me down the dimly lit corridor. Her puffy princess gown brushed against made of satin and tulle, it perfectly matched the lavender color of her eyes. Black stone walls surrounded us, as if we were headed blindly through the abyss. Yet even in the dim light, I could see the smoothness of her pale gray skin. It was a beacon in the darkness that drew my eyes to her exposed upper chest. Making our way to the east side of the palace, Jess was quiet. We stopped in front of the large purple door to her room, and she turned to face me. Her long black hair fell behind her shoulder, revealing the small crescent moon-shaped birthmark on her neck. It was just below her left ear. I was greeted with the familiar scent of lavender as Jess stood unusually close to me. It reminded me of a time when we were younger, before we were forced into an engagement. Jess had been a sweet young girl who loved flowers, especially lavender and white lilies. In the summers, I'd made a point of delivering bundles of them to her on my way back from my hunting lessons. I'd handpicked each one. Jess had given me delicate kisses on my cheeks as reward for being her loyal servant. Her words. But my real reward was her smile. Jess was always kept under lock and key in the castle, and it was rare to see her smile. Once I'd realized how happy a few flowers could make her, I made it a habit. I looked into Jess's shimmering eyes and wondered if she had the same fond memories. Did she know why I brought her flowers all those years ago? I considered telling her. Part of me felt guilty that I hadn't brought her flowers in a long time. I have something for you, she whispered as she opened the door behind her. I almost didn't hear her words. Jess squeezed my hand a little tighter as she pulled me into her room. Everything was purple. The covers on her bed, the rug beneath it, the drapes that hung over the balcony windows, and even the couches that sat in front of her wall of books. Her decor was beautiful, but my attention focused on the stone wall by her balcony. It had an intricate mural of flowers painted on it, mostly white lilies and lavender. She must have painted it herself. Maybe she remembered after all. While I stared at the beauty of her paintings, Jess fished around in one of her drawers. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the trembling of her hands. Was she nervous about something? She'd never had me in her room before, so I figured she was just embarrassed. I would have been uncomfortable being there myself if she'd ever shown romantic interest in me. However, in the past, she was always uninterested, so I didn't see the harm in indulging her this one time. I wanted to give you this for your birthday, but there were too many people at your party, Jess said as she pulled the item from her drawer. In her hands was a thin black chain necklace with a small crescent moon dangling at its center. I was surprised to see how personal the gift was, since she'd never given me anything before. The charm on the necklace looked exactly like her birthmark, and I couldn't find any words to say. May I? She asked, opening the clasp on the necklace. Her arms were open, and I only hesitated for a moment before dipping my head down so she could reach my neck. The necklace was cold on my skin, but the warmth of Jess's hands lingered at the base of my neck. Her hands had never touched me in such a way before. Tilting my head up, our eyes locked. The lavender sparkled in her eyes as one of her hands moved to caress the side of my face. My body shivered from her touch, and heat rose to my cheeks. Her hands were soft and warm as she touched me gently. Without hesitation, Jess pulled my face into hers. I staggered as her lips found mine. A warmth surged throughout my body as her tongue slipped into my mouth. She was deliciously sweet, and her lips were soft. I lost myself in the moment as my mind was unable to comprehend my body's reaction. Her kiss was intoxicating. When she pulled away, I fell to my knees, crippled by the dark desires that filled me. Dark magic electrified my veins, screaming for the pleasures of lust, but I refused to give in to it. I forced the magic down, regaining control. My control was tested when Jess's body pressed into mine, joining me on the ground. She placed herself between my knees, and her arms wrapped around my neck. Her breath danced across my skin as she looked up at me with a desire I'd never seen before. I knew I needed to leave. I forced myself to stand, pulling Jess up with me. Her arms slid from my neck and trailed down my sides. Unable to hide my body's reaction, I trembled. Jess gave me a smile that was so innocent she completely caught me off guard when her hand found its way to my pants. She gripped the bulge I couldn't hide, and a surge of heat hit me again. Stop, I said. I pushed her hands away. My heart pounded in my chest. I need to go. The transport will be waiting. It was then that I realized how heavy my breathing had become. Taking a deep breath, I pushed past her, eager to leave. Her sudden interest in me made my head spin. Why the heck was she trying to touch me like that? We weren't even married yet. I'd figured we'd wait until then to do stuff. In fact, I wanted to wait. The thought of doing things with her both overwhelmed and confused me. She was my best friend's sister, and 4 years older than me. I was sure she knew things that I didn't, and the unknown territory of exploring her body terrified me. Harrison, wait, she said, closing the distance between us. I stiffened as Jess's hand slid into my mess of hair. She gripped tightly, using her hold to pull my head down. A small gasp escaped me before her lips reached mine. I felt the surge of warmth fill me again as her body pressed against mine. She tasted like the first meal after a 7-day fast, and her body felt like the sun warming my face on a winter day. Her kisses were relentless. She barely gave me enough time to breathe between them, and I let myself enjoy it a little too much. Before I could wrap my head around the situation, Jess's hands found their way to my pants again. I took a step back, with my sense returned to me. Goodbye, Jess. Even though my voice was stern, she didn't want to let me go. Her hands held onto mine, and tears filled her eyes. My heart clenched at the sight of them. I'd never seen Jess look so sad. But I have one more thing I want to give you, she whispered. Her hands pulled the sleeves of her dress off her shoulders, and the whole dress fell to the floor. Jess had bared herself to me. My mouth opened, and I couldn't tear my eyes away. The curves of her body stole my breath as I stepped backward in disbelief. I stared at her, unable to form words. Was she trying to give me her body, her virtue? No. There was no way she would want to disgrace herself by having sex before the wedding. Would she? As I stepped back, her bedroom door brushed against me. My hand reached to find its handle. Running was my only option. But when I tried to pull the door open, it didn't budge. It's sealed with magic, Jess said with a laugh. That was all too familiar to me. I focused my dark magic on the seal, but it was no use. As a dark blood, Jess's magic was stronger than mine. I would never be able to break the seal or leave the room unless she wanted me to. A sickness churned in my stomach as I realized she had me trapped. I really need to go. Please take down the seal, I pleaded. Her laughter filled the room, mocking me. Don't be silly, Harrison. You've seen me, and now it's my turn to see you, she grinned. My eyes widened, realizing what she meant. She wanted me to get naked. My heart raced, and I shivered from the horrifying thought. I hadn't asked her to expose herself to me. She'd done that by choice, and my choice was to stay clothed. At least that was what I wanted. Jess didn't give me time to respond or comprehend. She rushed me. My back slammed into the bedroom door as she kissed me. Her tongue slid into my mouth while she wrapped me in her bare embrace. I melted into her arms. The feel of her tongue massaging mine broke through my restraint. There was an ache in my chest when I sank against the door behind us and slid to the floor. My heart pounded and I gasped for breath, but Jess never let up. I wanted to fight her, but my body was frozen. A mix of fear and desire consumed me. My body flooded with new sensations as Jess slowly unbuttoned my shirt. Every tiny touch she placed on my skin set my body on fire. Dark magic rose within me, drawn to my fear and lust. When Jess finally released me from her kiss, her mouth found its way to my ear. My long, pointed ears extended past my skull and were extremely sensitive. It was common for Asud's to have long ears, but mine embarrassed me. As soon as her tongue touched my ear, a shiver rippled down my spine and a moan escaped my lips. It wasn't right, but the pleasure overwhelmed me. Her kisses turned into little nibbles, and I thought I would explode from the pleasure. It was unbearable. Magic surged uncontrollably throughout my body. Jess must have felt it because she stopped tormenting me and went to her dresser. Her absence gave me a reprieve. I fought to control the chaotic burst of energy that escaped through my skin. The electric tingle of dark magic was hard to force down, but I had to quell the storm before it ripped me apart. Once I got it under control, my chest tightened. I mentally scolded myself for my behavior and regained my strength. By the time Jess found what she was looking for, I'd staggered to my feet. My breathing was under control and I was ready to leave, even if I had to jump from her balcony. I refused to stay in this uncomfortable situation, but it was as if Jess could read my mind. As soon as I took a step toward the balcony door, she threw something at me. A magical bracelet she'd pulled from her dresser attached to my right wrist, just below the one from the calling. It didn't hurt, but I instantly felt strange. Feel better? She asked. Her voice was like a siren's song. That bracelet will keep your magic suppressed so it doesn't get out of control again. It should also make you more compliant. The smile on her face was radiant. My body was heavy as Jess guided me to her bed. I remembered that I wanted to leave, but I no longer had the energy to resist. It was as if her words controlled me. She laid me down and pulled off my boots. I couldn't suppress the moan that escaped my lips when she removed my pants, freeing my lower member. She had me naked in her bed. It was wrong and made my stomach tighten, but for some reason my body was relaxed. It had to be the bracelet. I had fantasized about our wedding night many times over the years, but I never once imagined we would have sex before then. So when Jess climbed on top of me and her lavender-scented hair fell around my face, it felt like I was suffocating. My hands caressed her body even though I didn't want them to, and she returned to kissing my ears. I'd allowed her to find my weakness, and she took full advantage of it. Overwhelmed by the sickening pleasure tingling throughout my body, I cried out. Jess clearly enjoyed the sound and continued to make me moan. She even bit down hard on my lip while she kissed me, causing it to bleed. It hurt, but I liked the pain. I deserved the pain. When I could no longer bear her touch, Jess slid onto me. I gasped as I felt myself slip inside her. Dread washed over me. It wasn't right. I shouldn't have let her do that. Why had I let her do that? I wanted to fight, to make her stop, but I couldn't. That damn bracelet had made me weak. She was in control. Jess was merciless. Even though tears filled my eyes, she continued to ride me. She pulled my head to her and took my ear into her mouth. I couldn't handle it. The pleasure was cruel and so intense I thought I would explode. And then I did. Unable to stop myself, I released all of my tension and misery into her. She moaned, no doubt excited by her victory over me. I felt the tears roll down the sides of my face as I went limp on the bed. I turned my head to the side in an attempt to hide my shame, but I knew she could see it. Jess remained on top of me for a while. She admired my body with her hands, but I couldn't look at her. I was too ashamed. Tears were pouring down my face when she finally rolled off of me. Jess removed the bracelet and my will returned. I was surprised that she released me, but I quickly found my clothes and dressed. Even with my skin covered, I was exposed. My stomach tightened. Guilt consumed me as I rubbed my wrist where the bracelet had been. It ached, and when I looked down, I was horrified to see an exact replica of Jess's crescent moon birthmark on the underside of my wrist. It was solid black. There was no way Kai wouldn't see it. My breath escaped me as I froze. People would know what we did. I choked as the tears came faster. Well, that's unexpected, Jess said as she noticed the mark. She didn't seem at all bothered by the fact that people would know our shame. She just dressed and released the seal on the door. I kept my head down, avoiding eye contact with her as I headed out of the room. Be safe, she said as I walked out into the hall. Her words cut through me like a knife. After what had just happened, she dared to pretend to care about my well-being. My heart ached, and I regretted ever entering her room. I took off in a run down the hallway. My heart raced as thoughts plagued me. With no regard for the presence of others, I ran until I made it out of the palace. I never stopped to see if anyone was around. I just ran. When I reached the woods at the end of the palace gardens, I hunched over and gasped for breath. I retched into the brush, and wooziness filled me. As I stumbled to the ground, I found myself seated at the base of a large oak tree. Without any restraint, I cried. It felt as though my heart would burst from my chest. I was sure I would die from the force of it. My heart hurt more than I thought was ever possible as I sat there with my face buried between my knees. Rocking back and forth, I hit my head on the tree repeatedly. What had I done? And that is chapter 7. I actually thought it was going to be a lot harder to read. than it was. I guess I wasn't super graphic with like details on that one. But oh man, who feels it? I feel it. I feel the sadness, you know, the like, yeah. Poor Harrison is all I have to say, right? The consensus of sweet little cinnamon roll boy being betrayed by his betrothed. It's so dark. I can't even apologize for the darkness of which it is. But yeah, that is chapter 7. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you didn't see the other ones, they are linked below. So the first 7 chapters are out there and available. If you like what you heard, you can buy the book. It is also linked below. This is the first book in a series, so it's book 1. There are going to be a lot more books in this series, just to give you guys a little bit of what's coming in the future, because now that this one's published, what's next, right? I am writing 3 books this year. I'm writing the next 3 books in the series. I might have mentioned this yesterday. There's going to be one from each character's perspective, because there are 3 perspectives in this book. And basically, they're going to be doing a little bit more exploring and self-journeying individually before coming back in the book after those books to continue on in the story of having their fates being intertwined, because it is the Intertwined series. Intertwined. Yeah, so that's what I got for you guys today. I can't believe we have already gotten to the end of this book tour. I can't believe I have a book out there. It's published. People are buying it. People are reviewing it. If you've bought it and you've read it, please leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads. It really makes a huge difference for us self-published authors. So if you want to give me the love and support, I love reading reviews. Love it. Absolutely love it. I want to geek out about and talk about my characters and my world and all of that with all of you. And if you want to talk to me, Discord is the best place to do that. I have 2 Discords that I'm a part of. Both are linked below. One is the Dark Authors Discord, which is intended for those who write and or love dark fiction, which this is dark fiction. So there's that one. And then there's also a NaNoWriMo dedicated server for all of us writers and authors and people who like to participate in Nano and like to suffer together as we decide to do these crazy writing goals. So yeah, those are the 2 Discords I'm part of. Come chat with me. We can be friends. It'd be great. Oh, other than that, I don't know, man. I feel so relieved. It's like finally, I don't want to say over, but like we've done it. 5 years in the making. Book is out there. And while I'm like gung-ho, going hard on writing more books, like it's just such a relief. It's like when you have that really big group project and you spend all this time working on it and putting it together and all this stress and stuff, and then it's like you finally submit it and you're like, all right, that's it. It's over. I'm done with it. I'm moving on. Like, don't ever want to look at it again. That's kind of how it feels, except for like, I like reading my own book, guys. Like, I just read that chapter and was like, ah, I feel it. I feel it so much. And that's just because I write what I love and I love what I write. So there's that. Yeah. Like I said, if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, in the comments, and I will answer them. I would love to cater my platform towards what you guys like to see. If you'd like to see more videos about me and my writing process, or like writing vlogs, writing journey stuff, more behind the scenes stuff, let me know. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here with me today. And Monday. My next stream is Monday. We do Monday write-ins every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope to see you guys all then, and we can write together and struggle bus it together. Thank you guys for being here, and have a happy weekend.